Hello everybody, Xander here, and today we've got another review. Just like Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm doing a little different style of review because I feel like it's a little better this way. I can keep things going and not try to be overly like professional just because I'm talking to a microphone. There's no face-to-face kind of here. So obviously you're gonna know what I'm talking about already with the title and the thumbnail, but we're talking about a show that I've been kind of excited for since it was first announced a year or two ago when it initially got canned, and I was disappointed. Like how Warner Brothers canned a bunch of other stuff because of their acquisition and their tax write-offs. But Amazon Prime now has it, is now streaming it exclusively, and I finally got to watch it. Batman Caped Crusader, a sort of spiritual successor to Batman the Animated Series, got Bruce Timm as like a producer. J.J. Abrams is a producer. Matt Reeves, I think, is like one of the writers. Matt Reeves, of course, directed The Batman, which is really cool. This is sort of a throwback to the late 30s, early 40s Batman, from his first appearance to the still early years of the character in the 40s, and puts a spin on that all in animation. And like I said, I was excited for this because I'm a huge Batman fan, and I've wanted a animated Batman project for a long time, since they stopped making, The Brave and the Bold, but also Beware the Batman, which was a pretty short-lived CG animated series. But this is going back to 2D animation, going back to the animated series style a little bit. Unfortunately, Kevin Conroy not only didn't come back to this when it was being made, but had no involvement in the project, especially with his passing in 2022. So we got a new Batman, and I'm gonna have to pull this up because I'm going to forget a ton of names. So, alright, so Hamish Linklater is the new voice of Batman / Bruce Wayne. And he is pretty much an unknown actor to me. I think he's, let's see, he was on Midnight Mass, which is like a Netflix series that I have on my list but haven't watched yet. Ooh, he was also in Fantastic Four 2005 and Battleship. This is definitely one of his better projects. But yes, he's the new voice of Batman, and this is like another early Batman, sort of like Matt Reeves' The Batman, which follows a more closed-off Dark Knight, still trying to find his footing, but all set in the 1940s landscape. Then you've got supporting characters like Alfred Pennyworth, played by Jason Watkins, which is more based on the earliest adaptation of Alfred, so he's a little more round than most skinny versions of the character that we all know and love. This is still a pretty interesting one. It's not like a direct adaptation of the Alfred from the early 40s, because that one had a different last name and was slightly different personality, and then also died in the comics, and then was replaced with Pennyworth. But this one's more of an amalgamation of those two versions. You got Harvey Dent, played by Diedrich Bader, who voiced Batman in Brave and the Bold. and all around is just a fun actor when I see him. Then you got Commissioner Gordon. Gotta have Commissioner Gordon, played by Eric Morgan Stewart. Renee Montoya, Michelle C. Bonilla, sorry. Barbara Gordon, of course, who is a lawyer in this universe, played by Crystal Joy Brown. And you got the two dirty cops, Bullock and Flass, played by John DiMaggio and Gary Anthony Williams, who do good jobs at being, really, dirty boys, which I shouldn't have said that. And then so many other well-known voices. Yuri Lowenthal voices a character. That's pretty cool. And so many others, but this is mostly like a episodic show, so some of the plot lines are really contained to their episodes, and the rest of it's kind of like a overarching story, especially at the end. It's only 10 episodes, which is not a lot for this, but it does a decent job at setting it all up till the end, so that's good. So a lot of Batman's threats in this show are mostly, well, I'd say it's like almost a half and half. Like, a lot of it is the mob, which is usually where early Batman often, takes on most of his threats. It's the mob. Specifically this time, Rupert Thorne, who was a big mob boss, bad guy in the original animated series. So it's cool to see him here instead of like, some of the other classic ones like Falcone and Moroni and Falcone. And then the rest of the threats are, costume villains, and also a little bit of the supernatural, which is kind of cool to see, which does fit the more pulpiness that, this series is going for, that classic comic book style. But yeah, it's mostly just gangsters and costume villains, which I'm sure we're going to see more of the costume villains if we get a second season. I don't know if we will, but there is hope. That's kind of the basic plot. So what I'm going to do for this review, which I don't often do with TV shows or movies where I'll either do a spoiler-free review or a spoiler review, which is usually what I do with TV episodes. But because this is an entire season released at once, but also I want to talk about it, I'm going to do what I do with books often, where this part of the review that you're watching right now is the spoiler-free one, where I'm going to give my thoughts, my quick thoughts, and then a rating, and then we're going to move on to the spoiler stuff to, get further in. So I really liked the show. There are some problems I have with it, some of them related to spoilers, so all I'm going to say here is that the last couple of episodes feel a little off, or at least a little rushed. And I wish there was kind of more given to some of the character arcs, mostly with Batman. They were obviously trying to do that, and it kind of works, but not always. And then Batman's voice with Hamish Linklater, it took a while for me to get used to. It kind of at times feels like someone trying to do a Batman voice and not Batman, if you understand what I'm saying there. Because already when he's doing a Bruce Wayne voice, it's still very Batman-like, which I get is the point when he's, with Alfred, but it still feels a little over the top. But it is what it is. I appreciate the effort, obviously, and I also appreciate Linklater admitting he didn't want to do a Kevin Conroy type voice, which is nice, to be fair. Yeah, I think that's all I can say right now without spoiling. So my rating for the show as a whole would be an 8 out of 10. I think as a whole, that's what I'll give. The animation is really good. The music is also pretty good. Where it shows up, it's mostly like the opening intro, and certain pieces here and there. It's not everywhere, but it's still good. The other voice roles are also pretty good, especially from the actors that are more screen actors than voice actors, which is always like hit or miss when a live action actor comes onto a project that's voice related. But yeah, that's my quick review. Now we can move on to the spoiler stuff. So if you don't want that, go watch it on Amazon Prime. And yeah, there we go. Alright, spoilers. This is more going to be a kind of going through the episodes without like being too detailed like I normally would. So first episode has to do with the Penguin, who is now a woman played by Minnie Driver, which is one of those live action actors I brought up just a moment ago. Obviously I know there's going to be a lot of people upset about this. There probably already are, because this show is now like a few days old. And honestly, it works mostly. I think it works partly because it's not just the Penguin as a woman. Like, there's actually a difference in the personality. Like, Oswald Cobblepot's usually, like, kind of, he's a little resentful to society and the way they've treated his family, and is also very self-conscious about some things, like, because he's like short, he waddles, he's got a long nose, all that shit. Oswalda Cobblepot, on the other hand, is much more confident. Not only is she confidently running the Iceberg Lounge, which is like on some ship, but she's also like at least dancing like for one little bit at one point. Like, she's not at all self-conscious about anything. She's also like got that overbearing mom energy with her two boys who are there, and spoilers, one of them is a rat to Rupert Thorne, and she's falsely told that her other son is the rat, so she locks him in a box and sends him down the ocean or the river bed, whatever, and drowns him. And then the other son, who's actually the rat, tries to run away and tries to convince Barbara Gordon to help him out. And obviously Batman is there to eventually save the day. that's my rundown of episode 1's plot. It's pretty good. Again, I don't mind this change because, you know, we're already going for something unusual, like going back to the early 40s style of Batman, so it's cool to mix things up a little bit, especially because, you know, certain characters that are in the show don't show up for years after this era of Batman. Like Barbara Gordon wasn't really in the comics yet, I don't believe. I don't know when the Penguin shows up in the comics, but I'm not sure. And then, like I said, other characters. Episode 2, I'm trying to remember what that one was. IMDb's got the episode list, so maybe the titles will kind of help me. Okay, episode 2, that's right, has Clayface as the main villain, who is based more on his early appearance, especially like the actual appearance of Clayface, because he's got like the cloak, the scarf, and the hat. But Robin was in that first appearance of Clayface, which is interesting. And Robin is, of course, not here, so there's that. And Renee Montoya, for the most part, is investigating, you know, this case where a actress has been kidnapped, and she goes to her co-star, Basil Carlo, who is initially found murdered, but it turns out that was all a fake, and he's behind all of it in some sort of plot to be the ultimate villain, because that's how he's been cast in most of his movie roles, because he wasn't as young and handsome as the other leading men. Third episode has Catwoman, voiced by Christina Ricci, and that follows multi-millionaire Selena Kyle, who tries to steal diamonds as Catwoman, being inspired by Batman, to essentially fund her extravagant lifestyle, especially because her dad is in jail. And it's a quick and fun episode. I do like that Christina Ricci as Catwoman kind of sounds like Catwoman from the Arkham games, like very close in the type of voice. And again, she also does a good job doing a voice instead of just being a screen actor as usual. That's pretty good. Episode 4 follows the mayor having set up a special task force to take down the Batman after the last episode where pictures were leaked to the newspaper of Batman beating the shit out of cops. And Bullock and Flass end up becoming a part of that task force and getting the mayor's approval, despite, you know, being dirty bastards. And they have set up a plan by releasing a costume criminal from jail to attract Batman, and this guy is named Firebug. So he's like this really fire-obsessed, you know, weirdo, and he's very different to Firefly. I don't know if there is a character in the early comics called Firebug, but they do reference Firefly, with Flass like constantly calling him Firefly and being corrected. And this guy ends up being let go and it being staged as a sort of breakout. And Firebug ends up setting an apartment on fire, and Batman goes to help out, as well as Gordon and the others. And in the midst of all of this, Bullock and Flask kill Firebug, so he doesn't tell everyone that they were behind it. And in the midst of all of that, Bullock and Flask are considered heroes for taking down Firebug, and are made the heads of the task force to take down Batman. So there's that. And then episode 5's got Harley Quinn in it, which I found the most interesting, because Harley Quinn not only was never a comic character before her appearance in the animated series, but all of that was 5 years. I mean, 5 decades after this sort of era of Batman. So it's pretty cool to see Harley's design, the interpretation of it in this early 40s era, and she's also a solo villain, so she has no relation to the Joker in this universe, which is kind of cool. And in the previous episodes, we do see her as Harleen Quinzel, the psychiatrist, which is pretty cool to see her before her as a villain, because I'm pretty sure it's the Catwoman episode where where Bruce has his mother's pearls on display at a museum, which is where he meets Selena Kyle, but also where some guy talks shit about his mom and he punches him in the face and gets recommended a brief bit of therapy instead of getting put in jail. And that's where we meet Harley, and it eventually gets to this where Bruce only does the minimum amount of therapy before leaving, wanting to just continue his Batman stuff. And Harley essentially kidnaps a lot of her other rich patients and makes them give away their money before killing them. At least some of them, I guess. And she locks up some of her recent ones and has them dressed as I guess representations of what they are personally, because there's a business guy who's a tyrant to his employees and his family, so he's dressed as a king. And then there's a guy dressed as a baby who literally doesn't eat his vegetables. It's a little goofy, but it's something. And in the middle of all that, Harley and Montoya are buddies, which is brought up in the previous episode, and they go out for dinner while Batman is trying to figure out what's going on. Barbara's also trying to figure out what's going on. And Harley has to leave the dinner because Batman and Barbara are snooping around, and they fight at her lair, which I think it's at the mansion of some guy she brainwashed who owned it. Harley initially locks Batman up in one of the cells and sets the place to blow. Before Barbara shows up, she tries to get her out. The place starts blowing up, and the cells start crumbling first, so Batman is still in the cell after it falls into the ocean, which was a little funny to look at. And Harley and Barbara try to get out, and Harley is, dangling, and Barbara's trying to hold her, which reminded me a lot of Batman Beyond, the animated movie, where Batgirl was doing the same thing for Harley. And then I'm pretty sure both of them fall, but Batman is able to swing in the last second to save Barbara, to which she's, very upset about that. And at first Batman is like, you should have gone out when you could, like being kind of cold about it. And then Barbara tells him to shove it, and then he then apologizes. And of course that's kind of what I said at the beginning. That's the idea that he's an early Batman who's also pretty cold and detached from humanity, which I think is like a more going in that direction than the Batman kind of did, where it's more him just being dark and mysterious, because he still treats Alfred like shit, but yeah, there's more of that detail of him being cut off from normal human interaction, almost. The next episode 6, is about a ghost, the Gentleman Ghost, who is like this 18th century ghost who robs the poor, the impoverished. And in between this episode, Harvey Dent is trying to look good for Gotham as he's trying to run for mayor, and he's conflicted with trying to get support from Rupert Thorne, because that would be a lot of good money, but it would mean basically selling his soul to the devil. Meanwhile, Batman's trying to figure out how to stop Gentleman Ghost, because he's not sure if he's like a real guy or not, but he doesn't want to believe in ghosts as much as it seems like he might actually be a ghost. Bruce sort of muses this a little bit, humors it a little bit, and comes to a guy, an expert, to figure out how to stop a ghost. And he ends up finding the current descendant of the guys, the ghost's mansion, the old family mansion, and it turns out that this ghost used to be a guy who was originally a loyalist to the crown during the Revolution, and then eventually moved on to the Revolution, but then realized that he wasn't going to get as much money as he thought he would. He wasn't going to be as rich. So he basically said, screw that, I'm going to steal from poor people. And then he was hanged after a little bit, and now his ghost haunts Gotham, so there's that. So Batman goes to the descendant's house, or mansion, which is being sold off to Bruce's associate, Lucius Fox. And the Gentleman Ghost comes to stop that shit, and Batman stops him, but he gets away, and that's when the ghost expert gives the idea of a ritual to stop the ghost once and for all, which means finding the deed to like the mansion, I think, and burning it along with the blood of a nobleman on the deed. And it turns out Alfred is descendant from a noble line. So they go to a graveyard at night, spill Alfred's blood on the deed, and then try to burn it before the gentleman ghost tries to stop that shit right away. And Batman at first stops him, but it's not enough, as the deed isn't done burning, and he's trying to stop that, and also put almost his soul into Alfred, try and possess him. And, Alfred breaks free for a second, trying to convince Batman to just kill him and stop the ghost, but Batman won't do that. And he's able to burn the deed fully just in time. And that's when we get a little bit of growth, as Bruce actually shows care for Alfred. So that's, nice. And then Batman gives the bottled up soul of the gentleman ghost to the ghost expert. Episode 7 has some hitmen trying to kill Commissioner Gordon, and it turns out the actual target was Barbara Gordon, because the guy, some guy in prison at Blackgate, who was put away because of Barbara, wants to get her killed for that, and that proves to her that not everything is so black and white, which is the whole theme of the episode, with Barbara and Commissioner Gordon arguing about that. So yeah, that's there. Episode 8 happens in a carnival where this sort of like teenage girl, I guess, is luring away children in a carnival to suck their soul or out their life essence from them, but not killing them directly. And Batman obviously tries to stop her. Meanwhile, Harvey Dent's trying to get some good publicity at this carnival, and there's a bunch of orphan children brought over from the orphanage run by Leslie Tompkins, and some of the kids are like named after the Robins. So you got Dick, and then you got Jason, but you also got Carrie Kelly from The Dark Knight Returns, which is pretty cool. And yeah, they're all I think both of them are kidnapped and have their essence taken out before the girl's older brother, who's running a show at the carnival, tries to stop her because it's too suspicious, but they're in on it. But she wants to keep going and pushes him against a bookshelf, and he tumbles over. And Batman finds him later, and apparently that was enough to kill him, which was a little surprising. The girl then tries to take the life essence of Kelly, and Batman's able to stop her in time and brings up the fact that her brother's now dead just as his sun comes up, which is apparently what is like burns her. So I guess she's almost like an energy vampire. But Batman covers her with his cape and kind of surprises Carrie as to why he's helping a supposed monster, but he doesn't say anything. He just walks away with her and sends her to a hospital along with the other kids, and the day's pretty much saved there, outside of the final stinger at the end, where Harvey Dent decides not to support Ripper Thorne, and in the bathroom of the courthouse, gets his face splashed with acid, and that's where the episode ends. Right into episode 9, where of course he is Two-Face now. A more realistic looking Two-Face, I guess. Like, it doesn't look as crazy comic booky as it usually does. Like a more visible eye, it's more drooped over and all that. And he's of course having a lot of issues with his new face and with the voice inside his head, which is much more violent. But that's where the show kind of falters for me in these last 2 episodes, because it's very unsure of what it wants to do with Harvey Dent and Two-Face. He's not even called Two-Face at any point, and it doesn't even feel that much like he's actually got a dual personality, more so that he's just really, sort of anxious about, his face, what everyone thinks of him and all that. And it's almost manifesting into a different voice. But just not as much as, it would in the other versions. Because in the animated series, there's like a whole thing of, Harvey having had a big temper as a child, and him sort of putting that away inside, manifesting much later and much more powerful into Big Bad Harv. And then his face gets messed up also by Ripper Thorn, and that turns into Two-Face. So not only is that much more strong in that, but there's also more of a tragedy. Because the other issue with the Harvey Dent stuff in this show is that he's kind of a dick in most of the show, most of these episodes. So then it's a little weird when they not only try to set up more in these last 2 episodes that he's Bruce's friend, but setting up a tragedy to him becoming this monster. It just doesn't work as well, which is the problem. But basically Harvey's darkness takes over, and he tries to deal out his own brand of justice and take out Ripper Thorn. So he takes out some of his bigger right-hand men before eventually coming to his mansion, trying to kill him, and then Batman stops him. And that goes into episode 10, where Barbara's trying to help Harvey out despite their differences in the other episodes. Them trying to keep Harvey safe while Thorne's men are trying to take him out. And that leads to them all coming, all the characters coming to the docks on a very foggy night, with most of them trying to protect Harvey, while Bullock, Flass, and Thorne's men are all trying to take Dent out. And it ends with Flass almost shooting Barbara, but Harvey gets in the way and gets shot in the back, and Batman knocks Flass down. His gun slides away, and Batman picks up the gun and starts pointing it right in his face. And this is when I would mention, throughout the show, I kind of had a slight question in the back of my head of if this Batman does kill. Because there's like one point where he saves Barbara at another time by sideswiping a bunch of guys with his car, which might not kill them, but you could possibly kill them. And then there's a couple of times where he like dodges bullets, but the bullets hit other bad guys, so it's kind of like, okay. So I was actually wondering if he was going to shoot Flass, because already it's quite crazy that he's picking up the gun, because usually he doesn't do that. And then we hear the bullets fire, and then we cut back to Flass with, bullet holes around him. So Batman didn't shoot him. He's still looking really pissed, like the most pissed he's looked the whole series, and tosses the gun into the river, kind of like in Batman Begins. Which was another part I questioned. It was kind of cool, but I still question it as to why it was there. Because at least with the Alfred stuff, there was like an actual arc set up. I don't know if there's really an arc set up here, because there's like no real thing mentioned of, him not liking guns, or him, questioning whether or not he should kill people, or anything like that. So I don't really know what that is. But yeah, they take Flass and Bullock away. Harvey ends up dying from his wound. And that's kind of it. Outside of the end where, Rupert Thorne is, sitting in his chair in his lounge with some whiskey, smiling to himself now that Dent is gone, until a battering comes crashing through the window, hits the head of his chair and cuts his ear a little bit. And then he sees through the window Batman, standing on a rooftop of lightning crashing, looking like the animated series intro, which is a pretty good way to end the episode at least. But it's not quite over, as there is a end credit scene in a shack, some weird abandoned shack, with a bunch of laughing people, because the Joker is there. But Joker, we only see a little bit of his face, and it seems like he's perfecting his Joker toxin, and he seems to be a more evil, serious Joker, like in his first appearance, which might be interesting. And my god, that is a long review, because I'm looking at the time right now. This is probably the longest TV review I've given. And you can see why I'm so passionate about Batman. Alright, I think that's as much as I can say, because I already gave my thoughts in the beginning. 8 out of 10, not a bad show. It just got its problems at the end. Little inconsistencies here and there, and the Batman voice isn't my favorite, but oh well. So I hope you enjoyed this review, as long as it was. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys next time. Take care.